Welcome back to another Financial Autonomy podcast. Thanks for joining us once again. Now, for today's episode, I need to give a shout out to one of our Financial Autonomy community members, Christine Callanan, who emailed me about this dilemma. Is it best to put your savings towards extra mortgage repayments, or should you be instead investing? This one does come up a lot when I'm working with clients, and it's certainly not a question with a simple one-size-fits-all answer. So let's take a look at the factors you should consider to find the answer that's right for you. I should mention too that I've prepared another toolkit for this post that is a simple checklist of the things that you should consider when deciding what's right for you. So visit the website financialautonomy.com.au and go to the toolkits page where you can find that one and download it. Alright, let's dive into today's episode, whether you should pay off the mortgage or invest. Christine observed that whilst the question of whether savings should be put to extra mortgage repayments or investment is something faced by plenty of people, there's not a lot written about it when you do a bit of Googling. And there's a good reason for that. The answer is, it depends, and no one likes to give or receive that answer. Arriving at the answer that's right for you is very dependent on two key assumptions. What will the future home loan interest rates be? And what will the return be on your investments? Boil it down, and the question really is, will I earn more on an investment than I'll pay on the mortgage? Mortgage rates are at historical lows at the moment, typically somewhere around 4.5%. Both the US and Australian share markets have average returns of a little under 10% over the long term. Now, there's tax to pay on your share investments, and this is one key reason why there's no one-size-fits-all answer. We live in a marginal tax rate world where different people pay different rates of tax. To further complicate matters, Australian shares throw off franking credits, which offset some and potentially all of your tax liability on these holdings. To lean on the conservative side, let's assume that a third of your investment return goes to the taxman. Your 10% total return therefore becomes 6.6%. Still comfortably ahead of the mortgage rate. So, on this simple analysis, the preferred strategy would seem to be to prioritise investment in shares over additional mortgage payments. The tricky bit, though, is considering whether current mortgage interest rates will continue into the future. If you send your savings to an investment, what happens if in 5 years' time mortgage rates rise to 8%? At that sort of level, it would be very tough for an investment to provide an after-tax return that would exceed that. Then there's the question of share market returns and a topic I've raised before, sequencing risk. It's all very well to say the average share market return is 9-point-something%, but it varies a lot year to year. Will you actually experience the average return? So, with the investment option, you have uncertainty as to the result you'll get. Whereas under the extra mortgage repayment scenario, you have certainty. You've definitely saved the home loan interest rate. The value of that certainty should not be underestimated. Paying off your home loan is effectively a guaranteed outcome. To help address the uncertainty of your investment return, you should ensure that when planning your strategy, you're thinking of a minimum time frame of 5 years and ideally 10 years plus. The longer you invest for, the more likely it is that your outcome will come in at or around the long-term average. Perhaps it's worth considering whether this mortgage versus investment question need be so binary. Could you do both? At its simplest, if you can save, say, $400 per month, you could quite easily put half of that to your mortgage and invest the other half. Hedge your bets. You could even spice things up a bit further. Maybe you direct your savings to an investment, but then have all the income those investments produce paid off your home loan. Or maybe you even use some of the equity in your home to buy investments, potentially even creating a negative gearing strategy. Your savings go towards servicing this new investment loan, and once again, the investment income is used to make extra mortgage repayments. Because you've borrowed to kick things off, your investment portfolio will be bigger, meaning your investment income will be larger, which means more money to pay off your home loan. Another way you can go is to focus initially on paying down the home loan with all of your savings, and then once this is done, using the equity in your home to borrow and buy an investment portfolio. So, a sequential rather than a parallel approach. The attraction of this is that you've achieved the certain saving of having paid off your mortgage, and then once you re-borrow to invest, the interest expense will be tax deductible given the investments will produce taxable income. And because you're borrowing against your home, the interest rate will be low compared to the alternatives, which help make the strategy profitable. The only downside with this approach is the opportunity cost of having no market exposure during the loan repayment phase. It's worth addressing the fact that I've talked here about share market investments and not property investments. There's a couple of reasons for this, but it mainly boils down to risk. A well-diversified portfolio of Australian and international shares is far less risky than a single residential investment property, relying on one tenant to pay on time and look after the place. There are also a lot more transaction costs associated with property, things like stamp duty, agents' fees, maintenance costs, council rates, and on it goes. Plus, an investment property is a big, chunky investment. You can't do it for $200 a month, and you can't quickly liquidate if your circumstances change. So, to answer Christine's question, on balance, whilst interest rates remain at historic lows, it is likely that investment is a better option than additional mortgage repayments. But you would want a well-diversified investment portfolio of 100% growth assets and keep a close eye on the interest rate on your home loan. If it started to creep up, the answer might flip, at which point you could sell your shares and pay the proceeds off your mortgage in one lump sum. It's also essential that you appreciate that there is some risk and a positive outcome cannot be guaranteed. Now, this is very general advice, and I'd strongly urge you to sit down with someone to run the numbers that are specific to you. Your tax circumstances, time frame, job security, and broader financial position are all relevant factors in determining what's right for you. A reminder that there's a free toolkit for you to download that provides a simple checklist of the things you should consider when evaluating whether you should be focusing on paying down the mortgage or investing. So I know I mentioned it at the start, but visit the website financialautonomy.com.au to grab your copy. I hope you found today's post interesting. If you've got a question that you think others in the financial community might also face, drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. My name's Paul Benson, and thanks for listening to the Financial Autonomy Podcast, where we help you gain the choices you seek. Until next week, bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Financial Autonomy Podcast. Please keep in mind that the information contained in this podcast is general in nature. Your financial needs, circumstances, and objectives are unique to you. Before embarking on any investment or financial strategy, you are strongly encouraged to obtain professional advice tailored specifically for you. Need some help reaching your financial autonomy goal? Visit the Work With Me page at financialautonomy.com.au to learn how Paul and the Financial Autonomy team can help you succeed.